And the Indiana Pacers fall 133 to 128 in an overtime thriller against the Boston Celtics. It wasn't really a thriller for Pacer fans as they saw this team kind of fold in the final 10 seconds of regulation, give the game away with a 3-point lead and the ball with 10 seconds left. Facci, this is a heartbreaker here, and I know a lot of Pacer fans listening to this can kind of feel the sadness probably in my tone here, but this one just slipped right away from us.
I'm devastated. I really am right now. I think that the Pacers started out this game horrifically, and then they clawed their way all the way back to be able to take that lead and be able to hold on to that lead into just when it felt like they had done enough. They got in their own way, and I think that Indiana was their own worst enemy tonight.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's one of those things where you thought the Pacers, when they get down big in the third quarter, like, okay, the Celtics are going to run away with this. Well, all of a sudden, here comes Indiana. They come charging back. And then Siakam starts getting hot there in the fourth quarter, and Nembhard starts attacking Al Horford. I mean, they were just hunting Al Horford there in the fourth quarter and really getting a lot of good looks. But unfortunately, with it 117 to 114, that was the score for like almost, what was it, 46 seconds after Nembhard made that shot? 117, 114. So it was just a bit of a bummer because Nembhard trying to get the ball in bounds, and I think JJ Redick said it great. Jalen Brown is pulling Siakam's jersey as he's trying to get free. They don't call it. I kind of wonder what would have happened if Siakam didn't go and touch the ball
So do
after
I.
he let it go. I think that they may have called that off of Boston.
They could have, and it's tough that he did, go for that second effort. And JJ said, well, maybe Siakam thought that he touched it last or not. Also, kind of looked like a little bit of a shove from Jalen Brown to Siakam in that moment. But it was just brutal that routine plays was what the Pacers couldn't make. I mean, they couldn't inbound the ball. If you could just inbound the ball and Siakam can catch it, he's like getting fouled. He's going to the free throw line. Even if he hits one, it's a two-score game, and
Mhm.
and I and that's just something that you typically you don't see. And I also just feel even before that, Halliburton had some turnovers that were just very uncharacteristic, and it was the perfect meltdown for the Pacers, and it was the perfect comeback, unfortunately, for Boston.
Yeah, let's go to this overtime now because I think it
Well,
kind of
real
was
quick, I
yeah.
think before we even get into that, we got to touch on the Jalen Brown three. The
Oh, yeah.
decision, do you foul or not? Boston didn't give the Pacers that chance. There was no dribble. What they did is they set a perfect screen by Derek White that ended up freeing Jalen Brown. Siakam did a great job not fouling him and being all over him. I don't know how many times, out of 10, Jalen Brown hits that shot, but what I do know is that was his first game tying shot with less than 10 seconds to go from 3-point land. So it's a shot that probably doesn't go in often, but unfortunately tonight it did.
Yeah, it's a tough spot to be in. I mean, we've had this conversation how many times this year going back to the Bulls game, and then they did it
Snowball
against the
fight.
Heat, right? They fouled Tyler Hero when they were up three and kept him from getting a 3-point shot off. And in the game the Pacers really needed to win at the end of the season. Then you go into the Chris Middleton thing. I know JJ Redick brought this up on the broadcast, and then Jalen Brunson hitting a three. So I get it. It's tough. It's a very tough spot to be in. And I think JJ Redick's right. Like it's a lot easier to say, well, you should foul when you're up by three than to actually do it because you mentioned it. If Siakam tries to foul him there, let's just say number one, he gets 3 free throws. Now you're mad that he fouled him. Number two, let's say he makes it and then you foul him and now you're down by one in regulation. Like you're just more ticked. So I understand, and we've had the conversation, like just let it play out sometimes. That's a great shot by Jalen Brown. And
It is.
honestly, he had some big shots in this game, but there were some times there at the end of the game where it looked like he was not comfortable under the pressure. So I just thought it was a big time shot by him, and I thought, like you said, Pascal was in his grill as much as possible. But let's go to overtime here now, Fachi, because honestly, like this is where I thought it was interesting. Tyrese Halliburton hits that three to give Indiana the 120-117 lead. Jason Tatum misses a three. Halliburton gets another great look at three on the Al Horford pick and roll. They got that switch there. Horford and drop. Halliburton attacks him, hits that, shoots that three. It comes off long. Aaron Nesmith jumps out of nowhere to grab the rebound, but it's poked away. And then he ends up fouling Drew Holiday, picking up his fifth foul. The next play down, I think they might have hit a two. I think it was a Jalen Brown hit a two. So it made it 120 to 119. And then the Pacers, you mentioned that Halliburton loses the ball, I think it was. I can't remember who turned the ball over there, but um, TJ McConnell, let's see what happened here. Trying to see if I can find it here. Oh, that was when Nimhard got a shot blocked by Al Horford on that switch, and I thought Nimhard got fouled on that play by Horford.
I thought he did at first too. Like Horford definitely blocked that second attempt, but it looked like that first one could have been whistled for a
Yeah.
foul. But to no surprise, there wasn't much of a Pacers whistle tonight. I
Let,
mean, that's
let's
a whole
let's
nother
let's get into
segment
that in
for
a minute. We'll,
yeah,
we'll, we'll hold off
exactly.
on that.
Yes, we
But
will.
after that, Aaron Nesmith does everything he can to prevent Jason Tatum from getting a clean look at the basket. Jason Tatum gets fouled by Nesmith. Nesmith picks up his sixth foul. He's out of the game. They go to TJ McConnell. And okay, a couple things here. One, I appreciate the effort by Nesmith by trying to stop a basket from Tatum. But I think Aaron Nesmith is too important in this series with his size to give up his sixth foul on that play with 3 minutes left in the game, 2.5 minutes left in the game. So
What
I
makes
think
it
you
worse?
let him get the two
You
and
can
go
say
up
that, but
one.
what makes it worse is that Halliburton couldn't catch Tatum. He tried to
He
foul him,
fouled. Yeah,
and
well,
he
I'm glad he didn't.
yeah. I mean, he couldn't get a hold of him. Look, if Halliburton is the one that fouls him, then at this point, Neesmith doesn't pick up that sixth foul. So
Well, it
I
could have
just
been a
felt
clear
that
path foul.
yes, it definitely could have been, and probably would have been, but it's just I feel like when it came to those 50-50 plays, just Indiana wasn't getting them. They weren't getting those like key stops. Like you look at this, in the box score, you'll see, hey, Pacers did a good job from an offensive rebounding standpoint and a rebounding standpoint, period. But I felt like late in that game, Boston was getting those, second chance points, those offensive rebounds, like those, hey, Boston needs to get a stop and, get a rebound over here. They were getting those plays, and Indiana just simply wasn't. And I felt that that's the tough thing of like a team that's really been there, a team like Boston that's played in, 5 of the last 7 Eastern Conference Finals, and a team like Indiana that normally does play a really clean game, protect the ball. They had a lot of turnovers, and there was times that they couldn't get stops, and times
Mhm.
where in the past maybe they had gotten timely stops. I think that was really frustrating because the Pacers played a good enough game to win tonight, but they're coming up short, and it's definitely going to be one that will always be known as the one that slipped away.
Yeah, and I want to get back to the sequence here because after Nesmith fouls out, Jason Tatum gets those two free throws. The Celtics retake the lead. TJ McConnell comes into the game and immediately shoots the basketball, misses it. Siakam gets the rebound. He misses it. Celtics go down. Tyrese Halliburton steals the ball. He actually got fouled by Derek White, makes all three free throws. Pacers are back up 123, 121 with about a minute 45 left in the game. And so it's still really anybody's game at this point. I mean, I was like, okay, we're still in this. We're fighting hard. And this is when Miles Turner blocks that Jaylen Brown 5 foot driving layup, and then he doesn't hold on to the basketball on the rebound. And the Celtics get an offensive rebound. I think it might have been Derek White who grabbed it after this one. And this is where
Mhm.
Andrew Nimhart is trying to front Jason Tatum, which doesn't make any sense to me. He falls down. Jason Tatum gets wide open, and then McConnell makes a boneheaded foul. I know McConnell's been great, but when you've got the size mismatch, just let the guy get the free throw or get the layup because at that point he just ties it. Now you've given them a chance to retake the lead and continue to take that momentum. So after that, then another Halliburton turnover there with Drew Holiday pressuring him on the left side of the half court. So and then Tatum hit the three. And I think that was when the dagger felt real when the Celtics took a 4 point lead with about 42 seconds left in the game. So I know it's a lot of play by play there and you don't want to relive what happened, but it's just simple things like if Turner grabs that rebound, the Pacers have a chance to go back and extend upon their 2 point lead. And then if McConnell doesn't foul Jason Tatum when he's already got a wide open look at the basket, then it's just a tie game and you're not giving them an opportunity. So, and then if he does hit a three on the next possession, it's still a one possession game. So, it's just it's easy to sit here and criticize things late in a game like this when you lose close games, but it just shows you how slim the margin for error is with basketball games and how the Pacers, like you said, they let this one slip away.
They did, and that's the thing is like there's so many plays in this game that you could look and just say if they had just converted that one, Indiana probably wins this game.
Mm.
Like Halliburton had two brutal turnovers, and one was in overtime, and one was late in the fourth. That's really tough. You talked about all those specific plays that hey, if it goes one other way, Neesmith holds on to that rebound. He holds on to that rebound. Obviously, he's not fouling out in that game. So think about the swing right there.
Yeah.
Tatum ends up scoring 10 points in overtime.
Yep.
Like he was huge in overtime. I thought Indiana had actually done a pretty decent job for the most part on him in this game outside of overtime. And then obviously, we already mentioned that big dagger from Jaylen Brown before. It's just the Pacers, like I said when we first started this, they started out down 12-0 in this game, and I went, "Wow, Boston's good. Oh man, this is gonna be a tough series." But we saw the Pacers manage to, play a really good game, shoot really effectively from the field, do a lot of great things, and to come up short in this one, it just it's got to be a little bit defeating. You don't want Indiana to dwell on this because they've shown they can absolutely hang with Boston. But there's a couple things that really need to go the Pacers' way, and I'm ready to talk about it if you are. And a big thing is the free throws in this game. At one point, as neck and neck as this was, when it's all said and done, Boston shot 30 free throws to Indiana's 10. That
Yeah.
doesn't even do it much justice because the Pacers had about 2 free throws for the majority of this game. They shot their third free throw, pretty, decently midway into the fourth quarter. They didn't have a free throw attempt in the second quarter or the third quarter.
Mhm.
It's going to be hard to win games when you shoot 20 less free throws than your opponent.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest, like I didn't feel like in the moment until I looked at my box score that it was like egregious. You just kind of felt like, okay, Indiana's shooting, they're making a lot of shots, but I felt like there was, and it always feels like Pascal is the guy that never gets calls. I don't know if you feel the same way, but it feels like every time he's down there, down low, he gets bumped. They don't call anything, but he's one of the only guys that I really think is drawing a lot of contact on his drives. Now there was a drive where Halliburton just completely got hacked by Pritchard, and
That
even
was
the
bad.
broadcast was like, "Yeah, that wasn't even close. Like, how do you miss that?" So it's just one of those things that's frustrating. You get outscored. What is it, 20 or what is it, 16? No, I can't do math right now. It's late, guys. Sorry. No, 15 points by at the free throw line. You get outscored by 15 points. Pacers make 9. They made 24. So it's a 15 point plus right there for Boston, and you lose by 5 points. Well, if
Mhm.
you just have half that, you win the game by 2. So and they said Boston's one of these teams that is a great defensive team without fouling. I'm sorry, but there was a lot of crappy calls that were not called in this game. I'm not saying that that's the reason the Pacers lost. Pacers should have won this game despite the foul discrepancy,
Yep,
especially in the fourth quarter. They blew this game in the
they did.
final 10 seconds, bottom
That's on the
line.
Pacers.
So,
It is.
because if you just get the ball in the Neesmith or Halliburton, they have to foul, you have a chance to go up by 5 with like 8 seconds left. Like, pretty good chance you're going to win the game, right? So I just feel like the Pacers have to do a better job of making the referees call fouls. But I mean, in this game, we saw Tyler Ford call a 3-second violation on the Pacers offensively. We saw him call a double free throw lane violation when Drew Holiday literally was standing in the paint before Turner even stepped in. That had to go to a jump ball. We saw him overturn a call when he was the furthest referee away when they originally called it out on Boston when Sam Hauser completely smacked the crap out of Nemhard's arm to force a ball out of bounds. And so I'll say it again. Tyler Ford sucks. He's the worst official I've seen against the Pacers. Not saying that the Pacers lost because of Tyler Ford, but I just got to get it out there. Don't want him anywhere near the court reffing any of the Pacer games moving forward because when he's out there, I just know some stanky stuff is going to go down.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think everybody on social media, if you were on Twitter tonight, you could see people were talking about the officiating, and I don't want to be. I know in our YouTube channel, probably going to get swarmed by some Celtics fans, be like, "Oh, don't blame the refs," blah blah blah. Just call it a little bit more down the line. That's all. But look, despite the calls, Indiana had many chances to win this game. You're not winning much playoff games when you have 21 turnovers. 21 turnovers. The Pacers had a lot of turnovers early in this game. They had turnovers late. It's just uncharacteristic. I mean, there's been stretches on like you look at Halliburton, he had 10 assists, 3 turnovers. 2 of them were back-breaking turnovers in this game. He played a good game, but I also feel that he could play a better game. He can clean up from the turnovers, especially at timely times. But timely times sounds weird, but they were costly. Anyway, out of his 18 shots, 14 of them came from three-point land. I felt that he was very reliant on his three. While he did shoot really good percentage, 6 of 14, some of them were real deep. I do think that he could have some opportunities if he can drive to the hoop. He can free up, opportunities for other shooters. Drew Holiday at times did a fantastic job, especially late in the game, bottling Halliburton up. But I think that he's going to have to be able to get past that because it felt like in the fourth quarter and overtime late, Halliburton was just too quick to give that ball up because he had nowhere to go with it.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, Drew Holiday was applying pressure, and I know they did not always go to the Drew Holiday matchup on Halliburton as well. They had Derek White up there at times, and they were doing different matchups. But Drew Holiday was just a force in this game. I mean, he was awesome. He was hitting those corner threes that Keith talked with us about last game. He was really just when Drew Holiday is that good offensively, it's really hard to stop Boston. I think he's one of those guys that you hope doesn't get going, but I think that's the most points he's scored in a while. I think for the
I think so.
Celtics, and
28. That's a
yeah,
lot for Drew
it's
Holiday.
pretty good. Now we forgot to mention this, and I want to bring it up. In the fourth quarter with 10 seconds left and the Pacers inbounding the ball, why did they just call a timeout and advance the ball into the front court? Why would you keep it in the back court in Boston's territory? That doesn't make any sense to me.
I really don't know. I actually just looked it up the last time, unrelated, but the last time Drew Holiday scored 20 points was February 9th. He had
Okay.
28 points tonight. I mean,
Yeah.
he can't be going off like that. You played a good game. In terms of why they didn't call that timeout and advance it, I don't know. I don't think that I don't think Rick did the best job down the stretch at times with some situations. I mean, the non-fouling for the three-pointer on Jaylen Brown, I think you get a pass because they didn't dribble it, but I think that we'll look back on this and say, the execution down the stretch just simply was not good. And you look at that Jaylen Brown play, Joe Mazzulla drew up a fantastic play to be able to get him free.
Yeah.
So I think down the stretch, I think that everybody needs to be better, coaching included for Indiana.
Yeah. So I will say this. Dustin Dopirak actually did just tweet this, and he said that Rick Carlisle said this loss is totally on me. With 10
Yeah,
seconds left, we should have called timeout and advanced the ball. He also said we made
much
a
great
lot of mistakes turnover wise. That's an area we have to clean up. And in terms of the instructions on whether to foul or not, he said there was an instruction to foul with 5.7 seconds to go, but Brown got faced up too quick for them to do it. Carlisle said he understands that, said you don't want to give up a 3-shot foul or a 4-point play, which is what we just talked about too. So, I mean, I definitely understand all of that. So it's one of those things where you're gonna nitpick so much little stuff here. But I think if we just zoom out for a second, Facci, and look at the difference in these two teams, you're looking at a Boston team that everybody in that starting five right now, without Porzingis, has been an all-star, except for Derek White, who was on the cusp of being one. And if you add Porzingis in there, he was also an all-star in his career. So you're talking about 5 out of 6 players in their rotation right there that have been all-stars. The Pacers have 2 players on their team that have been all stars, and one is 24 years old. So they are on different playing fields in terms of experience and dealing with the limelight, that kind of thing. But for Indiana to come in there and almost steal game one the way that they did, I think that it kind of gives you a little bit of confidence that, you know what, this team zooming out, like you can say the Pacers, they don't fear Boston, maybe like people thought they would. I think they feel like they can compete with this team, they can play with this team, and they showed it tonight that they were 10 seconds away from winning this game, going up 1-0. They've had some close games with Boston all season long. Boston's a very good team, but I think they are very beatable in terms of some of the mental mistakes they have as well. Jaylen Brown even said it after the game, like he was not really happy with the way they played tonight, which I don't blame him. I think Indiana really was able to kind of counterattack everything that they did in that game. So I'm expecting a much more different game in game two. I don't think you can ask much more from Indiana than just to be a little bit cleaner with the basketball. But the way they shot the ball, 7 guys, I think, in double figures tonight, like you're not going to probably replicate that once again as efficient as they did it, especially for like 3 games in a row. So I'm kind of nervous about how game two is going to play out.
Yeah, a couple things. One, I'm not doing well right now. All right, going back to your point when you mentioned about Rick just saying, "Hey, that's on me. I should have called timeout." That you gotta in that moment. I mean, it's just so much going on. Like I didn't even think about that, but when you hear that he's saying that,
Well,
it
your
kills
coaching
me.
staff has to step up. I mean,
They do. That killed me to hear right over there that it's like, oh come on, Joe Mazzulla drew up an incredible play when they needed it most. We have to be able to do those little things like call timeout. Second, when you mentioned about all the all stars that Boston has, The one guy who's not an all-star is an all-defensive player in this league. Derek
True.
White and Drew Holiday both made the all-defensive teams. So they are deep. They are built to win it all. And then the other thing is, I think that either this is going to be a wake-up call for Boston to say, don't take Indiana lightly
Yeah.
because they were on the cusp of losing, or hopefully this is enough for Indiana to be able to look themselves in the mirror and say, we were this close. We can play better basketball. They shot the ball very, very well tonight, but I also feel that they didn't do those little things like they need to do it. And maybe this is that wake up call that Indiana needs, but I also just feel that it's unfortunate because the story tomorrow could have been maybe everybody's overlooked Indiana, and this is a team that should be taken more seriously instead of this is the team that kind of the lights were just a little bit too bright, for Indiana against Boston, and this is why this series could be over in 5 or whatever the experts are going to say tomorrow. It's just a shame, but Indiana can play better than this, and they will.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you can't look at this game and be like, okay, well, next game, this is what's going to happen if they do this, this, and this. Like, you can never play that game. And all I've been hearing all along, all playoff long is like Pacers, they can't beat anybody unless they're injured. Well, they pretty much played a fully healthy Boston team without Porzingis, and they almost won the game. So I think we can quit that narrative right now because we've seen how Indiana has been so good in the regular season against people or against teams that are viewed as better than them on paper. And there's no doubt about it. Like Andrew Nimhard, really, I think he's figured out a way to be poised in a lot of big moments. He's hit some huge shots for the Pacers. I mean, 5 of 10 tonight. Had a good game. Miles Turner was phenomenal in the first half.
That
Uh,
second quarter, he was incredible.
yeah,
He had a stretch where it might have been like 12 straight. I think they kind of went away from Turner at
they
times. He
did.
finishes with 23, but I mean that means that he had 5 points in the second half.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like they kind of went away from him. I was getting to that point. They could have gone to maybe a little bit more, but I think it all just depends. And I think JJ Redick brought up a great point. Like when they went to that zone, when Boston went to that zone, it did mess them up. Like that one play that was where Jalen Brown stole the ball from Obi Toppin. I think everybody remembers that play specifically. You know, Obi Toppin, I thought he had a great first half, and then the second half he was just okay.
Mhm.
And he's kind of like that sometimes. He can
Yep.
get off really
Big
like
first quarter.
shoots out of a cannon, boom, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's what that guy's doing. Okay, but I mean, Boston had some really good defensive moments. I mean, they're a good defensive team, but still, Indiana was able to score 128 points on this good defensive team in Boston. I mean, you saw it's the top two offensive teams, and it was just a fun game. Like I mean, I know it was a sad loss because Indiana should have won this, but like the back and forth, like I never really felt like Indiana was going to pull away. But when they started getting up there and Siakam was hitting that mid range jumper on back to back possessions and really just cooking after he had a rough shooting night early on, percentage wise, I wonder what's going to happen in game two. I know I said I feel nervous just because I don't want this to be a wake up call to Boston to be like, okay, we got to put the clamps on now. We got to step up a little bit more and play more of a tight a tighter game. And I think they will. I really do. I think that this is a game where they're like, okay, we escaped. We got lucky in this one. We got to go into Indiana up 2 games to nothing because this team is relentless. And I think while other people might disrespect Indiana a little bit in the national media, I don't think Boston does. I think Boston knows what Indiana is capable of.
Hey, I mean, this was almost the third time that the Pacers beat Boston, and they beat them twice in the regular season. They let this one slip away. There was another one where when Tyrese couldn't play that many minutes, as from what he's used to, that was another game that Indiana could have beat Boston. Regardless, hey, this isn't horseshoes or hand grenades. You don't get points for coming close. You got to finish the job. I felt like
Mhm.
at times we touched on Turner, how he had that hot second quarter. It was Siakam that really had things going in that fourth quarter. He really did. I believe he scored, I think it was either 10 or 12 points in that fourth quarter. I felt they didn't really go back to him enough in overtime. I think that was something that when Siakam had it going, you wanted to keep feeding him. And I think that's something that they got away from. And I just felt that, you mentioned for Obi Toppin, 15 points, 11 of them came in that first quarter. McConnell had his moments, but I think that, Indiana can play a better game. They very much can. I think they will get to the free throw line a little bit more. 10 free throws is not enough. They'll protect the rock. Assists. This is what's tough. Indiana had 38 assists. They didn't win the game. That ball movement was incredible tonight. That's hard to duplicate. Having nearly 40 assists is you played a great offensive game. They had 10 offensive rebounds. But in the end, Boston had 13, and I just feel a couple of those, made a little bit of a difference. So they played a good enough game to be able to win most times. But Boston, like you said, this is just as good of an offensive team as the Indiana Pacers are. And there's not many teams in the NBA that can match what Indiana can do on the offensive end, except for Boston.
Yeah, and what stinks is like the Pacers started out so poorly, got down 12-0, and it was like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? And then they kind of closed the game the same way. So it's kind of like they sandwiched it a little bit with bad play at the beginning and bad play at the end. And bad play at the beginning is something you can overcome, but bad play at the end is something you cannot overcome. You have to be at your best. And we know this is a young Pacers team. And I think Doris Burke brought it up, and I know Pacer fans have been, infuriated with her commentating, but I think she brought up a great point when she said that Tyrese Halliburton is 24 years old in his first playoff run,
Yeah.
going through all this right now, and how smart he is. I mean, it's tough. I don't think people realize how difficult it is to do what the Pacers are doing right now with this team that they've assembled. I mean, the fact that they're here in the Eastern Conference Finals to me is still a shock.
It
And I
is.
know there might be some fans that don't feel that way, but I mean, still, just it's crazy to think at the beginning of the year to now where this team is at. But we're seeing them grow, and I think this is a great experience. No matter if they win or lose, it's just a great experience. But you look at this Celtics team; they've got Jason Tatum, they've got Jalen Brown, two dogs that can get you a shot at any time. And I just don't feel like the Pacers have that level of player all the time yet or consistently enough. You will see some of that from Siakam from here, from time to time. But with Siakam, sometimes he can be kind of predictable with what he's going to do with his spin move and things like that. We see him try to go up quick and beat the defender when he lays it up. And I feel like he could use a reverse layup to his advantage more than he does because I think he's long enough and quick enough that if he just takes one more step, when he's already got his defender beat and trying to throw it up the glass real quick, if he would just use the rim as protection, I think he would get a much better feel or a better bounce on those shots. But I wonder because to me, Tyrese is still a natural point guard. He's not a natural scorer, and he looks for a shot at times, and it's great. But in this game, he hit some big threes. Trust me, I know that. But it's one of those things when you need that big dagger three again, it's hit or miss with Tyrese, and he always seems to settle for that three because that last three that he took at the end of regulation did not like that shot attempt. Felt like they could have done something better. I don't know what they were thinking there.
No, yeah, they just had nothing going. He just had to kind of chuck it up. He never stood a chance. There was also another time where after he got that fantastic block from
Yeah.
behind on Derek White for he blocked his 3-pointer. I thought that was awesome. He ended up rushing a 3-pointer a little while after that, like completely, there might have been like 50 seconds on the clock, in the game. I did not like that shot either. So I felt that he didn't take some great shots, had some turnovers down the stretch, but I've always said that Tyrese Halliburton is the type of player that comes back better from those type of moments. He
Mhm.
will. I would not be surprised if Halliburton comes out and has maybe just one turnover, next game, and that's against two all defensive players, in this league. But he's been that good. He learns from his mistakes, and yeah, at age 24, these are the battle wounds that you need to kind of go through to be able to, get better at this point. So essentially, I got it up right over here. So Halliburton with 58 seconds shot a 23-foot step back shot. That was that was 11 seconds deep into the shot clock. So still had plenty of time right over there. I didn't think that he needed to rush, that shot, and then also ended up having the turnover with 27.1 seconds when it was 117 to 114 Indiana.
Mhm.
So, I just felt like his final minute in the game was just not a great minute. And then also that leads into that missed shot at the buzzer where he just kind of chucked it up. So a forgettable last minute for Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah, and you hope he learns from it. And I think that he's done that. He's shown that all playoffs long. Like, don't count him out. I think he's really special. And I think you're starting to see him feel a little bit better health wise too. When he kind of crashed into the ESPN broadcast table, he looked like he was kind of holding at his back. And I'm sure you've noticed too that during timeouts, he's still wearing that wrap around his waist. So kind of wonder like if his back is still bothering him from back all the way against the Bucks in that series when he ended up almost missing. I think it was game 4 that he
Three.
almost missed.
I
Uh,
think it was game three. Is it
no, it
three
was
or
it was game 4 because
okay?
game 3 was the
Either
one
way, it was at
we were
home.
2-1. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
it was game 4 because it was like, man, we can't afford to lose this one, and we're up 2-1. We got to get this third game. So anyway, I thought there was a great play, Facci. I'm sure you remember it. in the third quarter when Halliburton had the ball, and I forget who came up to set a screen, but Drew Holiday and Jason Tatum are waiting there to trap him. And instead of going to his right and going into the trap, he spun and went left. And he had a clear drive to the basket. And all that was standing between him was Horford in the basket, and Horford was on Siakam. Well, Horford was trying to figure out, do I leave Siakam and step up on Halliburton? What do I do? And so he froze just for a second, and it got Horford in no man's land with his feet stuck in cement. And then, boom, he was able to shuffle it off to Siakam, who dunked it. And that's the kind of point guard that this Pacers team has been needing for years. And now they've got that. And now see where they're at in the Eastern Conference Finals. So I'm just saying he's learning, and you can already like see like he's done this for so many times in his career. Like it's not like that's something he's learning now, but he's reading so many different things that are thrown at him that it's only going to make him better for the future. So I'm not trying to look too far ahead, but I just think that with the way he has responded all playoff long to the criticism that he's gotten, to the lack of shots that he's taken, things like that, you're starting to see Tyrese Halliburton figure things out on the fly, and he's really adjusted well. And yeah, it's a tough loss. There's a lot of things we talk about, but I think overall this Pacers team played about as good of a game as you can play in a loss. It's just they got to tighten up the loose ends to close out a game like this.
Yeah, I hate saying they can hang, but they definitely can. Indiana belongs at this point. Nobody gave them a shot. I believe coming into this game, they might have even been 10.5 point underdogs to
Yeah.
Boston. I mean, this was not expected to be close. Indiana nearly stole one. But when you look at this playoff, this year in the playoffs for Halliburton, I mean, having to go up against, Pat Bev and whatever else Milwaukee was throwing at Halliburton. Then you look at the Knicks series and the defenders that the Knicks have, and then you're looking at now between Derek White, Drew Holiday, guys like that. He's seeing some of the best defensive matchups you could possibly ask for. Then he's going to go into Team USA and play with the best that the USA has to offer, as well as around the world against that competition. He's going to come out severely better from the playoffs this offseason into next year. So this type of experience absolutely cannot be simulated. I love the steps that he's taken forward. I think Indiana just needs a little bit more of a complete game from everybody. Like we said, Halliburton, Turner had that second quarter. Siakam had the fourth quarter. Halliburton had some moments. Obi Toppin had the first quarter, but I felt like they couldn't consistently do it. Each guy kind of took a turn for a quarter of giving you about, anywhere from 8 to 12 points. But Indiana needs to be just a little bit more consistent with what they have going. I felt like the bench that had been great for all playoff series. Yeah, I felt like it was interesting. Jalen Smith,
Dumb
Carlisle,
decision.
that can't happen again. It was
1 minute.
it
Why?
1 minute fouled Horford. Like it was just it was not good. It was not good. And I felt like I don't know if we're gonna see him again. Isaiah Jackson just didn't have that opportunity to really be able to make any type of impact. Played just 4 minutes. I felt like Ben Shepherd, who had been playing, awesome, still +5, but I felt like he actually had some looks. He was 0 of
Yeah.
3 from 3. There were some good looks that will go in next time around. This is just that type of game that you look back and there's so many. That shot went in. You hold on to that ball. You secure that rebound. It's a different story. But at the end of the day, Boston won. I think you could probably say, hey, they deserve to win. They made the plays when they needed to make them, and Indiana did not. And for that, we can't point the finger anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can make the case that Indiana lost this more than Boston won it too. I mean,
I think that is the statement that you should make right over there.
yeah, I
While
mean,
Boston won, it's us that blew it.
yeah, Indiana lost this game more than Boston won. And I know people probably won't like that, especially if Celtics fans are listening to this podcast, but that's just how I feel. I think the Pacers lost this one more than Boston won it. But I want to go back to the bench because Ben Shepherd, like, I'm not worried about that. I think he looked a little nervous in some of those shots, looked a little rushed. The game was fast. I mean, the game was very fast paced. I mean, I couldn't believe how fast this game was going at certain points. But let's talk about Isaiah Jackson because he played 4 minutes and they left him on an island with Jason Tatum. And you know what he did? He moved his feet incredibly well. Jason Tatum couldn't get around him. Jason Tatum went to shoot a 3-point shot over him, and he blocked the shot.
Yep.
Isaiah Jackson then gets subbed out like a play or two later for Jalen Smith, who hasn't played since the Bucks series, and he was awful in the Bucks series, got benched in that one too. So, like, we were big fans of Jalen Smith in the regular season,
Yeah.
but playoff Jalen Smith has worked his way out of the rotation and probably off this roster moving forward. We'll talk about that in the offseason once the playoffs are over. But Jalen Smith has proven, to me at least anyway, that he's someone that you need to move off of and just fully give Isaiah Jackson the reins now, because I get it. Isaiah Jackson, he's not a perfect player, but he's a good backup center. I know Miles had some great moments in the second quarter, so it's not really that big of a deal that he didn't play. But I think that he's capable enough with his footwork to get out there and guard these players. Now, if he gets a stupid foul because he bites on a pump fake and ends up fouling a 3-point shooter, okay, then maybe you pull him out of the game for making a dumb foul. Bring Turner back in, something like that, whatever, or go small with Obi and Siakam. But I just felt like he did a good job guarding in space against a really good offensive player in Jason Tatum, and blocked a shot, and then he gets rewarded with a spot to the bench. So did not make any sense to me.
No, I didn't like that. I think that the Jalen Smith experiment, like we said, very short-lived. I don't think we needed to give it another minute or so, and that's definitely tough for him. At this point, because he did have a good regular season, but for right now, Isaiah Jackson needs that minute, that extra minute that went to Jalen. Give it to Isaiah. I think even if Isaiah Jackson could be playing roughly around 10 minutes, I think that would be great. I think that that's where he's able to he's been able to have an impact when playing, eight or more minutes. But I do think that you got to, at times, McConnell had his moments. I think that he could still play better. It's going to be, there was a couple times in this game where I feel like Boston did get away with some plays where they were holding some jerseys, things like
Just
that.
a little
Like
bit.
there was a review where, it felt like Siakam was having his jersey being pulled by Jaylen Brown. They go to review. Hey, that ends up being a foul on Siakam. There's a lot of those type of plays that, hopefully the refs are a little bit more keen into seeing, where they might have missed some calls or anything of that sort. But just a shame, because I did have that vision of us, hopping on this pod after a win, and all of a sudden, all anyone can talk about is how Indiana went into Boston and stole one. That will not be the case tonight, but we've been in this spot a few times now, Alex. Indiana has lost game one in every series. Some could say maybe it's even good luck at this point. We're keeping it consistent, but it's how do you respond? I feel that, Indiana responded great in game two against Milwaukee. They played a good game too against the Knicks. At times, I felt like they could have won that game.
Should have won
Very
that game.
curious to see how Indiana responds against Boston in game two.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, they have a day off and they play Thursday night, so we'll be right back at it. But it's funny you mentioned that, because I remember you said before Game 7 against New York, you were like getting your eulogy of the Pacers season ready for the
Yeah,
podcast. You were
I
coming on
definitely
here to praise this team for how great of a year it's been. And tonight, as the game's getting close to being over, you're getting excited to like go all in on this Pacers win, and all of a sudden we lose. It's not your fault, because I'll just tell you this. I felt so like, nah, we're probably not going to win Game 7 against New York. I felt that the whole day. And before the game started, I was like, man, I'm going in here expecting the worst, hoping for the best. I mean, I've said that multiple times now on the podcast, but that's how I felt
yeah.
today at work. My boss was talking to me, and he was like, I think the Pacers can hang with them. And I'm like, I said, yeah. I said, I don't know why, but I feel good about tonight's game. And I said, and that makes me so incredibly nervous, because usually when I feel good, they get blown out or they lose. And when I feel bad, they win. And I was like, man, was I maybe feeling good because I really thought they could hang with them? And I think one of the things too we talked about with Keith was the rust, from Boston. Would they be rusty after being off since Wednesday? I don't think they were super rusty in terms of their shot making, but I think maybe some of their, just in the flow type things were a little bit rusty here and there. So I think they're going to be able to clean some things up as well. But yeah, it's just a bummer, man, because this could have been a totally different tone of voice, totally different, narrative going into game two. But now, all we got to hear about is how Boston escaped. Indiana choked this one away, which I think they did. I mean,
They did.
they choked it away. And game two is going to be interesting. But what are your thoughts on Kristaps Porzingis probably not coming back till game four?
I think look, you never wish injuries on anybody. I think the expectation was that he was going to miss game one and two. Now to hear that it might be game four, I think if anything, that's Indiana playing with a little bit of house money to say, hey, you know what? It sounds like he'll be out for at least 3 games. But even like Keith said, if Boston's in a good spot, they might keep him out. What if it is, a situation where I don't want to say 3-0 because that sounds just awful. If it's 2-1, could they bring him back? Yeah, they very well could for game four. But I think for right now, Indiana just needs to focus on who they have, and I think that they have enough to be able to win game 2. And if you win game 2, if Indiana goes in, they win game 2, and they have not lost at home, the vibe of this team and everything, the fan base is going to be completely different, because you got to remember this: Boston is an incredible team at home. They were unbelievable in the regular season, and they're not quite the same road team. So Boston 37-4 at home.
Hmm.
Not quite the same. That means 14 losses on the road this year. Big difference.
Yeah, I mean, they played good on the road in the playoffs, though. That's the only thing I'm looking at too.
I
You know
mean,
what I mean?
but look who they played. Boston got off easy. No one's really talking about the
But
Heat
we
without.
can't do that and then say that about us.
I
We
know,
got
but I
off
can't know.
easy.
But everybody ripped us like loose leaf paper. They haven't played anybody. All the guys have been out. So did Boston.
But they true,
So
but they won in 5. They won in 5 in both series. Pacers
they
probably could have
did.
won in 5 in both series if they really wanted to take care of business. Maybe not against the Knicks because OG played in games 1 and 2, but still, the way they showed up, and I mean, the Pacers are not on the same level. Let's be honest.
I agree with that. Boston, you heard from Keith. If they don't win an NBA Finals, you can make an argument to say this was a failure of the season. They
Yeah,
need to at least get to the finals just for it to be like, all right, yeah. But at this point, when you see on the other side of things, the Timberwolves and the Mavs, Boston, they're a team that's saying, this is our year. We got to get it done. Indiana, no one ever could have dreamed that they would be in this spot right now. I don't care what you say. If you said you predicted this, you didn't mean it. You might have just been speaking, with your heart, saying, "Oh, I love this team. Why can't they do that?" Right now, Indiana is in a spot where, hey, they saw that on a night like tonight, they were a little bit overmatched with talent, but the heart is real. The effort, it's there. You just got to clean up the little things, dot those I's, cross those T's. You can take game 2, and I'm not going to tell you that this series is over. It's unfortunate tonight, but we can respond in game 2.
let me ask you this question because I've seen it on social media. I've seen it on our YouTube comments. How can we be Pacer fans if we're picking
Yeah.
against the Pacers in the playoff predictions? Well, what's your response to that?
My response is I'm a realistic person. I'm not just going to be some homer who's out here like Pacers in 5. Like, no, it's like, I love this team. I was devastated hopping on this microphone to start this episode. I'm actually fired up right now. I really am, because I'm looking at this, and the more that I go through this, I'm like, okay, you know what? If Carlisle called a timeout over here, we grab that rebound, or we hit that shot, Halliburton doesn't turn it over, we win. So it's like, I do think if Indiana can just steal game 2, things could be completely different. Sure, I wish we won this game, but no, I'm never going to be the guy that is just blatantly telling you guys lies because I love this team. I'm going to say, I'm going to use my brain. And I'm going to say if a team is better than us, yeah, they're probably going to beat us, but I think that Indiana is going to go down swinging.
Yeah, I mean, I think this team has shown all year they're fighters, baby, and they're not going to give up. So I agree with you. But yeah, I mean, I always tend to have on my blue and yellow rose colored glasses on, right? Just trying to be a Pacers fan, watching a lot of stuff through the Pacers lens. But anybody realistically picking Indiana to win this series, you're just riding the high wave of them winning Game 7. I mean, nobody can look at this Boston team and say that you think Indiana really should win this series. I mean, I understand it. I understand why you want to say it. I'm right there with you. I'm rooting for Indiana. Trust me,
Oh,
that's what I want to
man.
happen. Don't get me wrong. Like just because we predict something doesn't mean that's what we want to happen. So
Trust me.
I'm trying to be fair. I mean, I said the Celtics in 7. Like that should give you enough hope as a Pacer fan. Like, oh, it can come down to one game. Yeah, it can come down to one game. That's how close I think this series could be. But regardless, if you're gonna hate on me and Facci for picking the Celtics and not the Pacers and not say we're Pacer fans, I think that you should maybe say, you know what, I appreciate that they're actually being realistic about this and not just feeding me bullcrap because I want to feel good about myself.
Yeah, we're not here to pat this team on the back for a great effort. It's like they need to be better to win on this level. This is the Eastern Conference Finals, not the first round where, maybe you're going to play a team that, hey, it could go either way. Everybody expects Boston to win this. It's going to be up to us to play some lights out performances, just like you saw in game 7 against the Knicks. In order to win a game like that, you had to bring your absolute A game. I don't think the Pacers brought their A game tonight. This was a B plus performance by Indiana. I felt that it could have been an A performance with a few different things. And for that, it makes me feel a little bit encouraged. I am still disappointed when I wake up. It'll probably hit me within the first few seconds, being like, let's just say that air ain't going to be too crisp tomorrow. All right, there's going to be a little regret in there. But at the same point, you know what? We live to see another day. I'm happy we don't have to wait too long. We have our health right now. It's not like there's going to be any, watch out for this. We just got to go out there Thursday night, take care of business in Boston, and know that we are more than capable of stealing one on the road.
No pep in the step for Mike Facci tomorrow, but maybe after some coffee in the morning and a little bit of playtime with Maddie, I think you'll be all right. But Maddie is his daughter, if you guys are unaware. So just gonna put that out there. So
And listen, real quick on that, I looked at my daughter and I looked at her. This was right after we beat the Knicks, and I looked at her. I said, "All you know is deep playoff runs. Look at you. You know she's 11 months old, and at this point comes into the world. The Pacers are on fire. You know she managed to skip all the seasons where we're talking about Kiefer Sykes and Brad Wanamaker and all these other guys like this. She just
Terry Taylor,
Eastern Conference Finals run. Lucky her."
lucky Maddie Facci, bringing us the good luck, unlike her father.
Yep. So someone's got to bring the good luck. You know, this girl's never been in an arena before for a game or anything like that, so she's never lost. So how about that?
She was born into the Facci curse. Can she break it? Let's see. We'll find out on the next episode. Yeah, I'm just kidding. But with that being said, I think it was a good time to wrap it up. Obviously, Pacer fans, we appreciate you all tuning in. Hopefully, the tone of voice got better as the show went on. And if you guys have any comments about what you saw in the game, please leave those in the comment section below on YouTube or in our social media platforms. With that being said, please, Facci, tell everybody where they can find us at on social media.
Absolutely. So you can find us on Twitter at PacersPod STP. You can find Alex on Twitter at AlexGoldenNBA. I can be found on Twitter at _FACCI. You can find us on Instagram at PacersPod STP. You can find us on Facebook at Setting the Pace. You can find us on TikTok at Setting the Pace. And Alex, tell them where they can check us out on YouTube.
Ladies and gentlemen, go to youtube.com/Setting the Pace, a Pacers podcast, where you can find all of our video content. And if you're listening to us on the audio side of things, thank you all so much for following the show. But please leave us a 5-star rating and review. It really means a lot. And if you leave that review, let us know. Send us a screenshot. Maybe we'll enter you guys into win a contest at some point. But do want to say this. We do have brand new merchandise on the, I forget what it's called now.
Teespring.
Teespring. Is that what it's called?
I believe so.
I can't remember. It's late at night. I'm forgetting what the link is called. But regardless, TeePublic. Yeah, like Teespring doesn't sound right.
I don't know what that is.
It is the TeePublic. Sorry, yeah. So TeePublic, Facci's got on one of the shirts that we made for the first round of the playoffs.
I'm still rocking a great material. Summertime's around the corner. You could work out in this shirt. We got options for days.
We already beat the Bucks, and I see Bucks fans are really enjoying the Pacers losing game 1 to the Celtics. But you know where they're at? They're all at home watching. They're not watching their Bucks, so they're paying attention to the Pacers. You know, those front runners. But regardless, got a really cool shirt that's available for you guys now on the TeePublic storefront page at Setting the Pace, a Pacers podcast. A link will be in the description of this pod and on the YouTube channel for you guys to check it out. But it is very nice. It's got a cool pays homage to the Indy 500 with the checkered on the side. It's got the Indiana Pacers. It says Setting the Pace 2024 Eastern Conference Final. So it's got everything in there that you want to remember what this great run was here. So with that being said, Facci, if you're hoping the Pacers can put game 1 behind them and use it as a tool to get ready for game 2 and shock Boston in the Garden, then hit me with those 3 words.
Let's go, Pacers.